You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma Podcast. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode. Excited to share this episode with you today, but before we do, I've got to thank our sponsors. First of all, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. They've been a huge part of this podcast for the last few years. So the Oklahoma Hall of Fame have been sharing Oklahoma's story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com. And for daily updates, go to oklahomahof on Instagram and give them a follow. Our other sponsor today is the Chickasaw Nation. Now, the Chickasaw Nation have sponsored pretty much everything in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma. And it's an honor to have their name and their brand supporting this podcast. A huge shout out to Governor Anatobi for supporting this podcast. It really means a lot. Our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode up in, well, Guthrie, America. There's no other way to say it. One of the greatest, if not the greatest, places in Oklahoma. It gives me great pleasure to introduce Tiffany Bohrer to the podcast, who is the Tipsy artist. This is awesome. Thank you so much for inviting me in your space. It's extremely colorful. It's exactly what I expected. And I've never done a paint class.
Oh,
but
we'll have to change that.
We'll have to change that for sure. I like to draw as a kid a lot, mostly cars. And my art teacher, there comes a certain point in school when you get to a certain age, you have to select. It's kind of like when you're 15, 16, you have to select like certain classes. And I didn't select art as one of my classes. And I think it broke her heart because she was like, you haven't, you're good at this. You're naturally good. And I was like, I just don't really care that much. That's probably why I was good at it. But I haven't really picked up a pen or a pencil like in an artistic way since the age of 14, 15.
Oh, so that's sad.
We need to change that. So I'll have to come back and take one of your classes.
Yes.
As people know who listen to the podcast, the general flow of things is we'll find out who you are, what you do, why you do it. Mm-hmm. So with that being said, set some context. Were you born and raised in the great place of Guthrie, Oklahoma?
I was not.
Okay.
So I was born in Huntington Beach, California. And then my mean and cruel parents swept me away to Midland, Texas, which I characterize it as the armpit of the world.
Of all the places to go from Huntington Beach, you went to Midland, Texas.
It was very sad.
Yeah.
Where I was, escaping tumbleweeds coming at me, high speeds during the day. So raised in the West Texas area, went to Texas Tech University, and then spent some time in the Dallas area for a while. And then I guess I'm trying to think when we actually came to Oklahoma was in, I want to say about 2008. So, 2008. So we've been here a while.
Yeah. Seen a lot of change.
Yeah. A lot of changes. Loved it because when I was in the Dallas area, that's where where I came from. Of course, I was raised a small town girl, and then went to Dallas, and I always felt so, I guess, just not known, like a number, very hard. It was just, kind of a very disconnected feeling. Mm-hmm. And always wanting, always seeking community. And then when I came to Oklahoma, I was amazed at how, first of all, how beautiful it was. I felt like it was the best kept secret in the world. I was like, okay, here are all the trees. This is what I've been missing since California. And then beyond that, too, it was just amazing how I was able to connect with all of these really wonderful people in leadership and creative people. And of course, I dove in right away. I was in charge of logistics for Oklahoma Creativity Project when they did their first big show here in Oklahoma. So, of course, that got me into the deep end really quick, but I just absolutely loved it. I felt like I had an instant sense of community when I got here.
Yeah. How old were you when they moved you from California to Midland?
I want to say I was about 5 years old.
So a lot of your life you've grown up kind of in
the West Texas area,
yes. Which explains the cowboy hat then.
Right.
Cowgirl hat,
yes,
sorry.
Yeah. And we would go back to California every year to visit all of our family, which was like complete torture. And then to come back.
This is where you used to live. This is what 70 degrees feels like every day.
That's
Not
right.
110.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's so funny. Yeah, that's kind of cruel to take you back home.
It is. I mean, I loved it.
Yeah.
It was so great. I have such fond memories of it. You know, I got to sleep at nights on my grandmother's lawn. It was a clover lawn, and go pick fruit off the tree in the courtyard. And I mean, it was so magical, you know, and just walk down to the beach. But and then you come back to Midland where you can't drink the water and horny toes are crawling in your house and in your bed.
I've driven through Midland many times. I've stopped very few times. I've driven through. I actually have a friend who lives in Odessa, and they're basically the same place.
That's true.
God, it's that drive down from Oklahoma City. There's just like that stretch of highway that's just terrible. Like the road is terrible. Mm-hmm. I just don't miss that one at all.
Me either.
But so where then? So you mentioned Midland, then you go to Texas Tech, and then on to Dallas. Is art a focus from a very young age?
It is.
Okay.
So, and I have a snazzy little picture. This was actually, I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, this was me in, I think, roughly 4th grade. So I got into some pageants. I didn't do pageants for very long, but it was good for me to get some confidence, and because I was actually very shy and had a hard time being in front of people. So I did some pageants and some things like that. I didn't have a traditional talent like most people could sing or dance. So I'd already been doing a lot of painting from a very early age, and my mom could tell I had a little bit, some talent, some natural talent, so she had me in some art lessons. So I did that as my talent in pageants. So I, mic'd up like Britney Spears and wore the little beret and had my little painting here, and I wrote some incredibly cheesy poetry to go with it, and I will not recite any of that to you. But it was fun. It got me through it. And so it was kind of an interesting twist in how I, started doing the art in a way that was educational, but it was, also, a little bit more lively, I guess, than a typical setting. And then I was very committed to that too. And I remember being in college, and I did major in art. My major is actually painting. My minor is drawing. And I remember being very disappointed in the setting for the art school. It was, strangely enough, the walls were all blank, and it was very sterile. It felt like I was in a crazy, dark, kind of insane asylum hospital that you would see in crazy movies. I mean, it was just really, for lack of a better word, just ugly and disenchanting. And I just remember thinking, gosh, if I have an art school, mine's going to be crazy fun and beautiful and lively and expressive. And, I wanted color and fun, and I want us to have a good time and listen to great music and enjoy ourselves. And so that's kind of, that was more of what, created, the idea to have fun with it.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of artists in general, just like to be in their space, and they paint and they express themselves through their art, right? But you have found an energy and tapped into something that you express yourself by effectively performing to a crowd and helping that crowd paint. And that's something totally different too, right? Like it's mixing, like I said, your pageant side, kind of whatever it is that made you want to do pageants and be comfortable standing in front of people as a young kid.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, that takes a lot to do, right? Because no one likes public speaking.
It definitely took some time. The pageants helped a little bit, and I wasn't a huge fan of the pageant industry, if you will, but I do think it was a good learning experience for me to get into it and to be in front of people, and it made me walk out in front of people and talk in front of people and that kind of thing. And then I did do a public speaking class in college, and that helped as well. And then what really helped was, really just getting into it and doing it here. But then my husband had a show on PBS many years ago, and that really forced me to constantly be in front of the camera and just be myself. And so that was just hours and hours in front of the camera and having to do it. And I remember asking somebody who was a little bit more seasoned than me at the time, what do you do? And they just said, just keep on doing it. Just keep on. And I had some horrible moments in the beginning. So we did a live news thing in Oklahoma. I don't remember which station it was, and that's okay. I don't want to really bring it back up for anybody to go see. But I froze. I just froze. And thank goodness my husband was there to rescue me. Yeah. And he had already been in the public eye a little bit longer than me, and he was a little bit more comfortable. Yeah. So it was all good. But yeah, I was so thankful. And I think I just just looked like that deer caught in headlights, just I was worthless the rest of the show. It was just like one of those things you see in the movies where somebody just freezes. I mean, it's just exactly like that, just terrible.
Well, but you're right though. And I noticed it with the podcast too. I don't go back and listen to my early ones, but the reps make it so you're just comfortable now, right?
Yeah.
It's just repetition, and you get more. You just get better at it, and the fear is always there. The awkwardness in your head, the butterflies, whatever it is, it's always there. It's never going to go away.
Yeah.
But it's just how you deal with it. And once you get going, you're like, oh yeah, this is fine. This is normal. I'm just kind of, doing my thing on stage, or to 10 people or to 1,000 people. It doesn't matter.
Yes.
Right. Because it's the same process.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's
when you're
true.
still on stage mic'd up somewhere, right? Sometimes it might even be more nerve wracking if you've only got 5 people staring at you rather than 50 people staring at you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, I'm much more, I don't know what it is, the adrenaline or something, but I do better in a larger crowd than I do if it's a really small crowd. So, especially if I have, anymore, I'm kind of just comfortable, whatever, because I just do it so much that it just feels like same as walking to the bathroom or whatever.
Yeah. It's routine, isn't it? And you just
it's so routine that I've done it for so many years, for so long. I don't really feel it that much a difference, but I have to admit that when I do get in front of a very large crowd, the energy of that big crowd feeds me, and I think I tend to be better and have better energy levels and just a little bit more on point. So, yeah.
You mentioned your husband, Joe. How'd you guys meet?
So we actually did meet at the Oklahoma Creativity Project.
Okay.
He was one of the selected. It was kind of I'm losing my words here. It is not a guest of honor, but they had selected just 12 people, I think, that were honored. And so Bart Connors was one of them, who's been an Olympic athlete, the gold medalist. And there were others. I really remember him. But because I was in charge of logistics, then I had to make sure that everything that he needed got taken care of. So he had his own big booth with all of his artwork displayed and everything, because his show was on making art, creating art, and that kind of thing. So I was recently divorced, and I found him on MySpace. Does anybody even know what that is anymore?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
All my
Just
old friends.
about.
Yeah, all the old people will know. So yeah, I looked him up on MySpace and I thought he was pretty hot. And so I was so cheesy. I sent him, I really reached out and it was kind of aggressive. And so we kind of joke about it to this day that, I really made sure that he was very well taken care of. And so, but yeah, it was just kind of love at first sight. When we met, we just really clicked and connected in such a unique way. And I had been, of course, doing, our art was just very, I guess, similar. We had the same color palette and, similar background and different things. And so we met, and wasn't very much longer after that we got married, and we've just been together ever since.
That's awesome.
So
well, good. You found your person, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So tell me, take me a little bit kind of from then, we'll go back a little bit, from being an art major, graduating Texas Tech, and then you think, I'm going to move to Dallas because Dallas is a big city and that's where I need to go. Do you think that you need to go there to get a job in art, or are you focused on a job in art, or are you thinking something else?
Ended up, at that time, I was doing more of just making art and just selling art in a very traditional way. I had been a school teacher, a kindergarten teacher, but I had not really combined the two.
Yeah.
So, because I don't know if I just said this, but I was a kindergarten teacher, so I wasn't really just specifically art. But I ended up creating my own line of art. At that time, it was much more like three-dimensional, and I was doing hand-carved, in metal, hand-tooled metal crosses, big giant crosses, on layers of silk and shadow boxes, and a lot of custom work for churches. And then I got into the World Trade Center in Dallas, had a little showroom there, and that took off pretty quickly, and I was in about 150 stores in the Midwest, so it kept me very busy. And then I had 2 little kidlets running around, and so I just worked. I loved it because I just worked from my home, and then I could just put baby gates up and kind of work and keep them corralled, and just ship out orders to all the stores and stuff. So I did that for a long time, and then it started to evolve a little bit. Well, I got copied pretty quickly. And I remember at the time my mentor said, "You're going to have to figure out how to do this in resin, because it's just a matter of time before they're going to take what at the time was very unique and could not be replicated, and they're going to replicate it. So if you don't figure out how to do that, somebody else is going to." And so she started discussing the idea of going to Mexico and all this stuff, and I'm like, "Yeah, it's not happening."
Just think something else.
I'm taking my toddlers and tow to Mexico. And so I just watched it happen, and saw, all my designs, and met the guy that he said, "Yeah, I saw your stuff at the showroom," and we took pictures, and he said, "I'm just letting you know, that's how it works, And I said, "Well, thank you for being so honest." Right. And so that was just, a big lesson. But it's just that thing where I just said, when the time is right, I'm going to get back into it my own way and make a difference. And sure enough, that's happened. But I was actually really, my hands were so sore all the time. I always had cuts, from working with sharp metal, and I felt like if I continued on for too long, I would have had serious arthritis at a young age. So I was actually really glad to get into the painting part. And I wanted something anyway that was really quick turnover. And so I started actually doing more when my kids were little. It started to evolve then, where I started actually just kind of getting together with all the other moms, and we would have craft and cocktails, and So, and then that kind of gradually evolved into the Tipsy artist thing.
Okay.
So, everything happens for a reason. Right. And, I look back and I think I have some, education that I did, a lot of those courses that I did in college. And I remember one of my professors he really wanted me to actually major in education. And he said, well, and I said, oh, I don't know. I don't know why at the time I didn't just full on major in it specifically. And he said, you're going to end up being a teacher. You can't run from this. And then sure enough, like I was right back in it, having to do that as a kindergarten teacher. And then now, even years later, having, I do it now with teaching art, So I definitely needed that narrow focus, I think. That's more my passion and my zone, so.
Yeah, the one thing I've learned from doing this is sometimes it takes people a very long time to figure out what they are put on this earth to do.
Yes.
Right? And sometimes people just know at the age of 7, they're like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life.
Right.
And those are the fortunate ones.
Yes,
because I'm still trying to figure it out as well.
Yes.
But it's great that you found something, and all of the things that you've done leading up to, finding the Tipsy artist and doing what you do, it all adds in, right? Like the kindergarten teacher stuff, the teaching, all of it makes sense, and all the failures help you, help you as well. So they're all lessons somewhere. Where I'm interested in before we dive into the Tipsy artist stuff, where does the just passion, love, drive of like wanting to teach come from?
Gosh, I have an extreme fascination with. I've always been very service oriented, but I also have an extreme fascination with the learning part of it. So, for example, my husband is a very talented artist, but he is very impatient with the person who is learning. He does not want to stop what he is doing and take the time to explain it to them. And he gets a little grumpy and typical artist, actually. It's it's the temperamental artist. And but I, on the other hand, have always been, when I engage with a student and they are struggling with something, I'm just completely fascinated by it, and I want to have a conversation about it. So I want to understand what their block is and how we can overcome it and the method, and I just eat it up. And so it's the patience with that process is more of a natural hunger to learn how to overcome and make it very pleasurable too. That's another part of it. Because initially I was going to actually major in art therapy, and they didn't have any programs in my area. And so I ended up just doing art, but art therapy was more of my true focus when I first started. And then I ended up coming back to that too, but not necessarily in the sense of just breaking it down to assess people and their mental health, or not in just that way, even though I do feel like it is very helpful for mental health. But I love the idea of the learning process being very pleasurable. So on one hand, I'm certainly not just a teacher who teaches for the sake of to create something that I'm trying to think what I'm trying to say. So there's a guy next door who's a great sculptor, and he's pretty strict, and he gets a little frustrated by people who take shortcuts to learn, for example. He is very, if you were to take a class from him, it'd be very different than me. So he is very strict with, you are going to be disciplined and you're going to take all these necessary steps to learn, and they're going to be hard, and you're not even necessarily going to have a good time. And I even remember those steps when I was in college. Like, we had to draw many things that they would turn everything upside down and make you draw so that it would teach you how to see. And while I really value those lessons, and I think they are really important for people who really do need to master the craft, for those who are coming in for something quick and fast, and they want it to be really fun, and they are trying to have a release, and they want to just let go and have a good time, the goals have to shift a little bit. So while I do maintain a certain level of instruction, there's always constant step by step. I have a lot of cheating methods in place to help people have pleasure during the process. And if things get too difficult, then it's no fun and people get frustrated, and that's not part of what we're trying to do here in 2 to 3 hours. So certainly if people keep coming back again and again and again, then they can, have more of a one-on-one conversation with me, or they can even take a private lesson. It can be a lot different. But in terms of the 2 to 3 hour class where they come in, we're going to have templates that you trace, and we're going to have Sharpies that you can cheat with for line work. And I mean, we have all these little fun tools.
It's more about the experience than the process of becoming a sculptor and artist, because I'm sure the guy next door is probably mad at people who cut corners because they probably don't respect the craft.
Exactly.
Right? Whereas you're a totally different vibe. It's like, for the people coming in here, it's not so much about the painting they're walking away with. It's about having an absolute blast.
Right.
Right?
Yes.
Makes a lot
or
of
I
sense.
hope they feel that way. I feel like they should have that attitude more than they sometimes do. But yes, that's true.
Yeah, they don't come in here and think they're Van Gogh in 30 minutes.
That's correct. Yes.
But they can look like him through tracing and little tricks, right?
That's
and
true.
hang something that they're proud of in their office, front room, living room, whatever it is, rather than going out spending, going to Target and spending $200 on a painting that just is in 1,000 homes or whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Like and then the memory every time they look at that.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, it's
they can go, well, at least we had a good time.
Yeah, exactly.
At the very least.
At the very least, yeah. And if not, we drank great wine and had a good time with our friends, right?
Yes,
or with colleagues, or whoever it is that you guys sit next to. Like it's just a great way to, going back to kind of art therapy and a great way to just release and forget about the rest of the world and your phone and the family and kids or whatever's going on at the moment. Like just, you got a painting in front of you, or you got a canvas in front of you. Like zone out.
Yeah.
Have some fun.
Yeah.
How long are your classes?
So they are 2.5 to 3 hours.
Okay.
Typically. That's the normal class. So it just kind of depends on the artist and how fast they go. And if they do bring in, I generally recommend 12 and up, but it does seem that if they are younger, I don't know what it is, and that it just seems like the younger ones tend to, they just whip through. Like sometimes they'll be done in 45 minutes. So. And
then you're babysitting.
Yeah. So
someone is.
I always tell them, well, it's funny, we, depending on the child, if they can, sometimes they'll just sit and do their phone or whatever afterwards. And I kind of really hate to see that. So we usually have backup. I have backup artistic crafts and things on the side here in this studio, so that, that boredom will not be tolerated.
Right. Yeah.
Like we will continue to be creative.
You will have a paintbrush in front of you. Yeah.
I have other things for them to do. So even if I have to bring in another canvas, like we're going to get them busy and keep on creating. So
So just circling back a little bit to when you said kind of like the way the Tipsy artist was born, you kind of naturally came back around to it with friends, and then you said you ended up doing it with a bunch of people. What time is that? And then also, how do you feel that you have unlocked something and that you can give it everything you have? Obviously, you've got the full support of Joe to do this.
Yes.
So how, take us through that process as well of like, wow, I'm going to start a new business, and I'm going to give it everything I have, and I feel like I found my calling now.
So a lot of it really happened after Joe and I got together, which would have been like about 2008 going forward, because I really got into the DIY movement, if you will. That's actually when it started to become so explosive online. And so that helped a lot. And then he had so many strengths that really complemented mine, where I was certainly a talented painter, for example, but when I first started doing my classes, I had some tears in the beginning. Just people were, I can't do my Santa eyes right, or whatever. That was, I say Santa eyes because that was the first crying episode I had. So, and I really thought I had done a great job of making it easy. I made him smiling. So I said, you just have to do parentheses. And it just didn't really matter how I talked her through it, she just struggled and couldn't quite, manifest the goal. And so, you know what, I kept, encountering, not necessarily with tears every time, but I kept encountering how it was so challenging to almost do a drawing lesson and then a painting lesson. And then people are just kind of worn out too. So you have to fit it all into that time frame. So I said, I'm going to start making templates because if we can just have one really nice, iconic shape to where no matter what else happens, at least somebody says, I don't know what's going on here, but I know it's a cowboy boot, or something.
Right.
At least you've got that one strong shape where they can draw around it. And there's just a lot that can go right or wrong, but they're still going to have a great experience and still be able to look back and have at least one recognizable shape. So I started out, cutting out all my own shapes to begin with, just hand doing it. And then he's very talented with Photoshop. So he really escalated that process of the templates. I mean, he just made it crazy amazing. So like you could have every tiny little shape to do all kinds of detail in the artwork. And those are not very easy to do. It takes a special person to be able to drop out the negative versus positive and make that work to where it is still very easy to trace. Yeah. So he really complimented me in that way. And then he was so talented with the marketing and the advertising and the creation of logos and things like that. So we just really made a great team. He taught me a lot. He used to be the creative director for Laurel Birch and Precious Moments. I mean, some big companies he really worked for. So he had a lot of knowledge with all of that. So basically, I could just go crazy with my dreams and big ideas, and he just really made everything come to life, with systems, organized, systems in place. So as a matter of fact, in the very beginning, he handmade all of my easels, and because we were your typical artists, we were broke. So we did not have a penny to our name almost. And so it was just kind of crazy in the beginning. So we just... we just dove in and made it happen with, just all of those skills coming together. So,
what year was that?
I want to say 2009, around there.
Yeah.
So that's when we first started to do everything, and then we just kept going, and then it really took off when it went just crazy explosive growth. Was 2012. That's the year I really remember because that's when Facebook decided to make advertising affordable for everybody. Yeah. And it was a game changer. It was huge. Because until that time, it was only deep pockets that could play the game, with magazine ads and things like that. So, you could take out a little ad for $5, and just kind of watch it just do this crazy explosive growth. And then, as our pockets became deeper and deeper with just more and more sales, and we just put every penny right back into the business, and then it just went crazy nuts. Like we are the world record holder for the largest painting class in the world. We had 1,006 at once in Woodward, and we outsold Duck Dynasty. The lady told me that. She was like, you need to be proud, like you. So that was really crazy cool. But then that, as we were able to sell that class for about 2 to 3 months. So as they purchased, then I was able to just run out and buy supplies, So it was just, and I remember those were such fun problems to have at the time. Like I didn't have enough, they wouldn't let me spend more on my credit. Like with I had money in my bank, and they said, "Well, you can't spend more than $2,000 a day." And I said, "You don't understand. I have to buy like $10,000 worth of whatever at that time. It was just like a crazy thing. I was having to spend so much money on canvas and paint, and it was like a big rush of the business just exploding all at once. Like that class just was crazy."
What was that class?
It was actually we were painting a cross.
Okay.
Which I thought, of course, because I've been doing crosses my whole life, you know, like I just thought, yeah, it's just, you know, like do the whole, you know, but yeah, so I thought that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was just this wonderful experience. We were all painting the same thing. I do long for those days again. We don't ever get to paint all the same thing anymore. My ladies are, well, there's a few men. I say a lot of ladies and a few smart men that go to my classes. So, but it is mostly ladies. But yeah, they like options now. So when I go out and do a class, they like to have about 4 or 5 different paintings to choose from, and so I've had to really up my game too. So I have to teach 4 or 5 different paintings all at once.
Yeah, that one of the questions I was going to ask too. That was, how do you keep it, relevant, fun, and just stay evolving too? And it sounds like you just said you go from just painting one thing to multiple things, but then you have to grow as well.
I do. I actually grew a lot during the pandemic. I mean, I had a lot of growth through this entire journey, but I think up until the pandemic, I was doing what was typically, and when actually through the pandemic, I did what I always called coloring book painting, where I kept it extremely simple, and that was really the only thing. I did do complex work in the beginning, and it would never. Well, I would show it, and it would never sell, and so I would see it in the comments. That looks hard. I don't. And there was no sales. Yeah. So I had to back off of my typical approach and simplify everything to just really kind of what would appear crude to most, just black outlines and flat, solid color within a shape. And especially when people didn't understand the process and they didn't know there was a template that was going to be at the class, there wasn't the trust, they would have to see it that simple in order to make them believe that they could actually do it. So I did do that style for a really long time, just that very simple style. And then during the pandemic, I had a chance to just get back into my own personal artwork again. And I felt like I was going back and actually brushing up and honing my own skills and painting with some of, the God-given talent that I had actually kind of suppressed for a long time and not had an opportunity to play with for a long time. So I'd just been so busy, I had to just stick to what I had to do to sell. So I had a beautiful opportunity to come back and create my own work again. And then, so I've been gradually introducing that since that time, slowly. And for the most part, I'll sell it as just my own personal artwork again, just like I would have done like back in the old days. Yeah. So I'm doing that again. Since we have to diversify, there's so much diversification that has to happen, in order to, you can't just teach. I mean, I have to teach, and then I have to sell my art, and then I have to have online classes, and then I have to have painting kits, and then I have to have a B&B business, and then so I have a lot of different things going on. Yeah. But what's been interesting is, as my students have been with me over all these years, they are starting to take more challenging risks with me in the classroom setting now too. So I've been gradually introducing like palette knife painting to them. So it helps me too, so that we don't all get stagnant. Yeah. We can learn new things. So we've been just, a lot of it is trends. I mean, everybody has to identify trends. That's the main reason, the main way that we keep it fresh. There's just that simple, like right now, the Highland cow is the cash cow, So that's something, you probably see one around here somewhere.
It's funny you say that. My parents have one in their house in Wales. Like I went home one year for Christmas, and I was like, that's new. And it's just like, like a rainbow of colors basically, and a cow. Like,
right.
Sure.
They are very popular right now. Yes, and we love it when there's trends. And everybody who works in this world with design and decor, we love to see trends because then it gives us something new to create with. So yeah, for sure. cows. That's the big thing right now. So I just try to. We had gnomes for a while. That was kind of funny. I wasn't really expecting that. I was like, oh, gnomes, okay. I tried to do the mushrooms. My kids are in their young 20s. So they're like, Mom, you should paint mushrooms. And so I tried, but that didn't go over so well. Probably because my demographic's a little bit older. So like mushrooms, Tipsy, what are you talking about? Like a mushroom. Yeah. So I don't know. Well, we may have to let some of my ladies catch up a little bit. They have to get caught up to speed with the new trends and stuff. So
I mean, back to that though, that with the fact that you have done this for so long now, but you have a loyal fan base and you can see them grow, right? And you build a relationship with those ladies that come back and they're learning and they're evolving. It's not, it's not just them coming in with their mates, having a drink of wine and painting something, right? Like you're really helping them progress too.
Yes.
It's a real hobby for them rather than just like a once a year with the girls at work where you're going to go and drink wine and paint,
Yeah, definitely.
Which is really nice.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, a lot of people that come back and constantly do it over and over and over again, and I can definitely see them progress and grow and try new things. And then I do have one of the coolest stories I've ever heard. Well, I say that on one hand, it's super awesome, on the other hand, it's really sad. But there's one lady in particular who this is the very sad part, she lost her son, her very young son, in a motorcycle accident. And she just, was overcome with grief and depression and just, couldn't keep her head up. And so she started coming to my classes and she said, it's changed my life. And she said, and the way she described it was so interesting. She said, I just feel normal again. And so I thought I've never felt so much appreciation for the state of normal. But for her, it was just, she said, I just don't feel anything. I just feel like I'm in the moment and I just, feel like I'm enjoying myself in that moment and the pleasure of just painting in that moment. So, and she said, it's the only time when I'm not thinking, and in her case, which would bring her to a state of sadness, so now she's obsessed with creativity, so, and then I talked to people who run homes with like adolescents that are struggling with mental health issues and things. And, they have told me that there's some real psychology behind this. There's a lot of, I guess they say, chaos in the brain. And actually, like in a map of brain, you can see quadrants where chaos resides. And they say if you bring it, the minute you start doing a creative process, it brings it to an area of the brain where I guess it's more logical and you're forced to be in that present moment, just doing that task. And so it calms everybody down so they just get to this place of calm. So it's been really fascinating to see people like come into the experience in that way and just be healed and, just have not just, a great time and a fun time with their girlfriends or whatever, but also just have some healing and... Yeah,
there's a deeper meaning to what they're doing, right? And, those stories, when you hear those, you're like, that's what I do. That is why I do what I do,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. It's great to give 30 people an amazing painting to go home with, right?
Right.
Awesome. Had a great experience. But there's those special moments that like... because I'm sure there comes a point where that becomes routine for you, right? And you're like, I have to change it up because I am losing my mind a little bit, right? Like I've got to change it up. And then someone comes in and tells you that story and you're like, oh no, I'm doing the right thing here.
Yes.
It's really good. Because I think just as human beings, we're always looking for the new shiny thing or something to do new, or feel like we need to raise our game because we're looking at Instagram or social media and, everyone's doing better than we are. It looks like they are anyway. But yeah, brings you back to the moment when someone tells you a story like that and you see them, come back and, like I said, get addicted to being creative.
Right.
It's so much fun to do that.
Yeah, that's true.
So where does the name come from for you? I should have asked that earlier.
Oh, no, it's good. Well, so in the beginning, it was actually pretty strategic. I have a marketing background too. And so that's, a whole other part of my resume, but actually was director of some marketing PR for some different companies. So we just sat around the dinner table and broke bread and came up with ideas, and we just came up with, okay, drunk.com is probably not great. Liability issues there. But Tipsy, that's, Tipsy artist as opposed to drunkartist.com. I mean, we were just throwing out all kinds of stuff. And so we fell in love with it because it was just fun and meant moderation. And also, you don't really want something that specifically says alcohol, because in the world of advertising, like on Facebook, for example, it can just shut down an ad, or set it into, it just gets blocked and stuff like that. So you don't even really want the word wine in there. So it was just kind of a really fun, clever way to represent what we do, and in a fun way that just kind of says what it is we do.
That's awesome. When a little bit ago you said that Joe was there to kind of just listen to you dream big and let you dream big and facilitate, and he would help make a lot of things, and you were able to just dream big and write your goals down and do that. What were some of those big dreams, and how have we ticked all the boxes that you were dreaming about at that moment?
So, like this classroom that I'm in, for one thing, is just he made everything in here.
Yeah.
So he painted everything, he painted all the art, he makes all the furniture.
When did you move in here?
2017.
Okay.
So you've
been doing it for a while then, before you found a spot. Yeah. And I'm more of a thumbtack fishing wire kind of a gal. Yeah. Staple gun. I mean, I'm just I've seen those funny little Instagram videos where it's like, watch a woman hang a painting and she's all, and just it's just ridiculous, just grabbing like some crude instrument from the kitchen to like tack in a tack, and it's just like, okay, no, he's like hardcore with like very strict with his implementation of craft and how he builds everything. So he gave me a really strong foundation in terms of like everything that he builds to make everything happen. And then when we did our systems on the road too, he was very instrumental in that as well. So he's very type A, super organized, kind of reins all my crazy in. And so he'll actually do my checklist forms and make them concise and legible and not. It's just, I've learned a lot from him, because I know when I did mine, it was an Excel spreadsheet that was so tiny and it's like this long and just mountains of text, just so much, just so hard on the eyes. And then, he just said, this is ridiculous. How can anybody work with this? And so he created these beautiful forms that people could read and had little tiny cute boxes by each side, because he's got that patience and organization to like make that form happen, for example. Or, like just systems on the road where we used to have way too much stuff and it was super heavy and crazy, and he just would come in and would actually build carts to hold systems and things, because so much of our life is just going out on the road with. It's like we're doing like what a concert, like a musician would do. You have to have those systems in place, and it's that people just don't understand all the stuff that goes into that behind the scenes. And there's just so much that he's done that just makes it very streamlined, and make sure that and I am pretty organized. Well, to my bbfamily, I'm very organized. To him, I'm a mess. So were the dreams then to do it, take it on the road and have a road, like the road show type, we're going on to new conventions, we're going to do shows and get it to.
Well, that's funny.
You just wanted to travel, you want to set a base?
That was almost one of those dreams that sort of revealed itself to me. It's funny how you have visions. I remember, because I'm really into, like manifesting and having a dream and journaling, and I'm into all that stuff. But what was funny was all I saw in my head, I could see myself dancing and painting and being in front of a giant crowd. That's all I could really see. And at the time, it's funny. I was so silly, but I think I was, partying a lot with midlife crisis at the time. So I was just like, am I going to be in a nightclub painting? I mean, I had no idea. Like, it just really hadn't all come together. And then when I was finally like in that moment where I'm looking out at all these, like 1,000 ladies, and I do have my music on and I'm dancing and I'm painting, but I'm just like, this is so much better than what I had ever imagined. But I didn't really set out thinking that exact thing, but it ended up being like God blessed me more than I ever imagined. Like that was just so much cooler. So I think as it just, we definitely started out, but I had no idea it could get that big. I didn't know that was possible. Until all those sales came in. Yeah. And we just filled the place up, like, to capacity. I didn't really know. So. And then it just kept happening, and it still happens. We don't do 1,000 anymore. We still average, about 200, 150 to 200, so, which is crazy. I didn't think it was going to come back after the pandemic. I thought people would be scared to come back. That was a big shock to me, too. I was kind of ready to just constantly do painting kits from here on and just do really small classes. And that's what I was prepared for. And then when everybody was so cooped up for so long, and then two things happened. The gas prices went down. They all happened almost at the same time. The gas prices went down substantially, and then CDC all of a sudden just obliterated all the regulations. They just
like life's back to normal now.
Disappeared.
Yeah.
So then everybody just kind of went nuts and said, oh my gosh, we can't wait to get out again. So I kind of just tiptoed back out there again and, contacted some of my old venues and said, hey, you want to give it a go? Like, we'll just see what happens, Yeah. And the first class I needed was like a little over 200, and I was just like, this is lovely. I'm back. I felt like Sally Fields, like, you love me. You really love me.
Yeah, looking back, if someone would have told you you're going to set a world record in Woodward, Oklahoma for painting with 1,000 women, it'd have been like, you are drunk.
I had no idea. Because the typical way it was always done was small, intimate painting classes. And
like 20, 25 people.
Right. Yeah. And then we actually we were over in another building over here, and we started selling out every single class with 50. Mm. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And then we moved into a bigger building, and we started selling out for 100. And then we started traveling and getting casinos, and the casinos loved it because, if you're familiar with how they just want, how can we get people in the door?
Yeah,
it's like they're giving away free ice cream, and
they offer it as a service for people to get in the door, or a couple. The wife's going to go paint, the husband's going to go gamble, whatever it is. Like it's just another, it's like a spa date, right? It's that equivalent of like, okay, the girls go to a show and the husband, whatever it is, right? Yeah. Like that's for you. That's probably best too, because they pay you directly, right? Rather than, I assume that works. Or do they sell like individual spots as well?
Yeah. So basically, what we do is we do like a venue partner program.
Gotcha.
And so they just let me come into the space, and then I just take all the class registrations to my website, and then they get all the food, drinks,
which is where they really make their money,
and
right?
gambling.
Well, and gambling too. Yeah. It's a lot of food and drink too. Like people probably don't think about, you talk about all the product of painting. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of food and drink as well. But that many people, like you talk about logistics, and not many people want to host 200, 300, 400, 1,000 people with food and drink, and let alone put painting product and stuff in front of them as well. Like that's a huge deal.
Yeah, the right venue, it's a really good fit for us. Like we do really well. Casinos love it. Hotels usually love it if they have a bar on site, because they're dead during the week and their bar is just staffed anyway, and they're kind of doing this. Yeah. And so they're going to be open anyway, so they might as well just have a lot of people come in. And so, it's for the right venue, it's a really good mutual win-win there.
Yeah. Finishing up, let's talk about this amazing town we're in. When did, I guess, you first walk through the red bricks? Like, when did you first walk over the red bricks and see the town of Guthrie?
That was actually in my early 20s.
Okay.
So my mom actually moved to Oklahoma first before I did. She was more the pioneer there. And I just remember Granny had one, I think was a restaurant back then. If you're really an old timer, you'll know. Granny had one. It's Ben Coffin. He's a dear friend of mine. Now he just does catering. He's out on a farm. So he's kind of shifted gears a little bit. Yeah. But back then they had big restaurant, in fact, just a couple of doors down. And the shops was just lively. It was Victorian Walk. And so that was my first time. And then I think I came back again another weekend. And I just remember walking through and just being so enchanted with the city and seeing all the old buildings. And I've always had this dream of living in a historic loft ever since I was very young, early 20s for sure. I was doing all those scrapbooks and I would make my little visions for what I wanted in life. And it was always a historic loft. I just loved it. I just kind of always knew I was going to be in some place really old and charming like that. And then we moved out here. It was, I think it was 2012, so it was almost a simultaneous, maybe 2011, when the big growth happened. So, yeah, I was actually directing a gallery here in town, and then I could, bring in art shows, and then I could also do my classes in there, and it just kind of started to take off like crazy. So you've been living in Guthrie just over 10 years? Then? Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
One of the things that kind of stuck out earlier on, what you talked about was that, you said community in Oklahoma, you felt like was, much more of a community than the bigger cities that you're in, Dallas and stuff like that. Guthrie, I think, is just the epitome of that too, right? Like it's, you think about Hetty, we talked earlier.
Right.
Like, we both know Hetty, and like he is the most community-driven person I know.
He is. Yeah, it's such a cool place. There are lots of characters here, and I really love that. It almost feels theme parkish sometimes, because I will walk around like this, and and sometimes I'm even more wild. I'll have like a much more full-on cowgirl regalia on and just kind of crazy. And then there's another guy that I think he has, bless his heart, he has passed away, but he used to wear a top hat and he would whistle everywhere he went with a cane. And he was always just walking around downtown Guthrie. And so we just have all these really fun characters. And of course, if you do know Hetty, he's a character.
He is a character. He's still wearing red socks.
Yeah, he's got his red socks, and he's just, he's such a big personality. He's always so joyful. It's like Santa Claus.
He is like Santa Claus. That's brilliant.
He is.
So Christmas coming up. You have some big stuff coming up over Christmas. That's kind of busy period for you.
It is very busy.
Okay. What are you excited about this Christmas?
So, my cash cows. I am. I'm going to have
more ways than one.
In more ways than one. I'm going to have a Santa Highland cow for sure, and we'll be doing just anything and everything. We'll be doing Santa gnomes and barns, and lots of the farm stuff is still really popular, but we'll be doing classes here almost every weekend. And then I'll be traveling around to Woodward and Norman and Shawnee for sure, and Enid and some of those different areas. Yeah. So lots of fundraisers. We do fundraisers. We'll do corporate parties. We'll do just about anything, and I'll probably be working just about every day. Yeah.
And people, if there's someone listening that just wants to do that or see your stuff, they can go to the website, right? That's the best place to go.
tipsyartist.com.
Okay. And then I'll put the link to that in the description, as well as like their Instagram page, because you do a very good job of posting Instagram content.
Thank you.
It's a joy to see people who take Instagram seriously and really use it for their business, and you definitely do.
Thank you. I
it's
try.
Good to see that. But, Tiffany, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for sharing some stories. Thank you for inviting me in your wonderful space. I need to schedule a class and bring my wife up.
Yes, you do.
Here.
We'll make sure. I'll give you some gift certificates.
I appreciate that. We'll have to do that. I will not paint a cow. I'll paint something else.
Yes, we have other options.
But yeah, for people listening, thank you so much, and we will catch you next episode. Cheers. Hope you guys enjoyed that great episode. Thank you so much for listening. As always, huge shout out to our sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, sharing Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Our other sponsor, the Chickasaw Nation, amazing sponsor. They do amazing things for the state, and they're always sponsoring something in Oklahoma. They're a huge supporter of Oklahoma, and without their support, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. And our third sponsor is Diffie Ford Lincoln down in El Reno. Now, this one makes me so happy because these guys are great friends of mine, play a lot of golf together. I've bought my cars from them, do most of my oil changes down there, have a cup of coffee, hang out down in El Reno. It's a good spot to go. And not only are they great friends, but they provide a great service. So for over 60 years, third generation family owned Oklahoma business down in El Reno. They're also in Bethany as well. So people in the Bethany area know the Diffies really well. But if you're looking for anything new, used, Ford, Lincoln, or whatever, I'm sure they could find anything you want. Check them out, diffieford.net, and then on Instagram at diffiefordlincoln.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.